In essence, whatever you did last year, whether it's in your life, whether it's in your school, whether it's in your work, or in church, whatever you did last year, and you didn't have success, this year you shall see the benefits and the fruitfulness of your labor. I want to make sure that you understand that, and that applies to this work in ministry. Number two, it's important that I say to you, give you a warning. And the warning has to do with a certain necessity of having a change of your mindset. Now, this is not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about something else in a moment. Most of us in our walk through life, we walk through life in three phases. And the phases can be described like this. We have come out of something, and we've walked through something, and we're walking into something. Let me relate it to Scripture. Whenever the Lord speaks of Israel, he speaks of them coming out of Egypt, walking through the wilderness, and entering into a promise. You understand that? Your life as a child, you were born, you were a young person. Then you went to a metamorphosis, you become a young adult, a person, and then you became older. Every ministry has a birth. You understand? It has a time of growth, time of expansion. And this is at a time it goes into productivity. Every marriage has that. That's why I say to people always, it takes about 5 years to make that thing work. Some people give up in 3 years. No, you got to go the other 2. It takes 5 years, 3 to 5 years for it to work. So all of us have walked out of something, through something, and in something. Now here's the problem. In each phase of our lives, we develop a certain mentality and a certain perspective. How many know that when you were in the world, you had a certain attitude, certain perspective? That is, you were selfish, you were self-centered, you were arrogant, you were indifferent. Everything revolved around you. You weren't concerned about God or anything. So that was your mindset. And for somebody to talk to you about loving somebody else as you love yourself, that was foreign to you. When you walk through the wilderness, that is, when you walk through a time of discipline and training where you will become educated and oriented, you had a certain atmosphere, a certain attitude. Many times you thought that people were doing you wrong. You thought you were being misunderstood. You understand? You thought sometimes you were working to do things, you were not accomplishing things, and many times you were in a time of discipline and training. All of us go through that phase in education. But when you come into the promise, it is a time of productivity, which means that things that you have done before requires a different mindset than it does before. Now, here's the problem. If you've ever gone through a wilderness, ministries and life, time of difficulty, time of training, time when you've lost people, people have come in and out of your life, time of disappointment, disillusionment, despair. If you've ever gone through that kind of phase in your life, you do develop a certain kind of mentality. It's called coping. You become sensitive, become very delicate. You know what I mean? It's just you can't take too much. You understand? And your idea of life is that anytime you can get something cheap, you call it a blessing. Now, that's the truth now. Come on, stay with me now. Stay with me, because I got to move quickly. Because the idea of a blessing when we're in a wilderness mentality is that if I get it cheap or get it for a low cost, whether it's a house or car or clothes, it's a blessing of God. And I don't consider it a blessing if I have to pay full price for it, because that's not a blessing. So if I have to buy a house, buy a car, or whatever it may be, if it costs a certain amount of money, I don't think it's God unless I can get it free, get it for less cost, or get it for nothing. Now, that's a mentality we develop in the wilderness, because in the wilderness, basically, we don't have a whole lot. But in the wilderness, you also, many times, are used to having things done for you. Like Israel, a type. Israel had water out of a rock. They had food that fell from heaven. They had manna every day. You understand? The sun, the moon, they were led. They were kept people. Things were provided for them. See, there's a phase in our lives when we're used to people doing everything for us. That's a phase in your life, in your Christian walk, when you're used to God doing everything for you. You pray for a parking lot. Isn't it true? You pray for everything. In fact, if something doesn't happen supernaturally, you don't think God is blessing you. You understand? That's a mentality. We expect things for nothing, and we expect God to do everything. And we develop that kind of mindset. We do it in churches. There's a phase in church growth when things are done for us without our labor. Cannot explain why things grow or why things happen, both the good and the bad. Because see, in the wilderness, you're used to fighting the devil, fighting the enemy all the time. But when you go into the promise, some things stop. Some things come to an end. Now, here's the warning. You can't move into this next phase of ministry in life with the same mindset you had in the wilderness.